You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We have a jam-packed show for you today, straight from inside the headlines to our special guests to fighting words at the end of the episode. So let's get started by going right away inside those headlines. With all the furor over the blockbuster movie Oppenheimer about the building of the atomic bomb, Katrina Miller, a science reporter who earned a degree in particle physics from the University of Chicago and was the third black woman from her university to have done so, wrote recently in the New York Times about Lise Meitner. Ever heard of her? Well, she developed a theory of nuclear fission, the process that enabled the atomic bomb. But Meitner's identity, being both female and Jewish, barred her from sharing any credit for the discovery. Her newly translated letters bring this to light. She was a giant, Meitner, in her own right, a contemporary of Nobel laureates like Einstein, Niels Bohr, and Max Planck. After the second atomic device was dropped on Nagasaki, the American press dubbed her the mother of the atomic bomb, an association she vehemently rejected. From the beginning, she broke glass ceilings. Born in 1878 in Vienna, she started studying physics privately because women in Austria were not allowed to attend college until 1897. In 1901, she enrolled in graduate school at the University of Vienna, and 5 years later earned a doctorate in physics, only the second woman from that university to ever do so. She moved to the University of Berlin and began auditing classes taught by Max Planck, who won the 1918 Nobel in physics, and who generally did not allow women to attend his lectures. In Berlin, she also met Otto Hahn, a chemist who was not afraid of collaborating with women. But as a woman, she was not allowed upstairs in Hahn's lab. So she worked, without pay, in the basement, and when she needed to use the restroom, had to dash across the street. In 1912, Meitner and Hahn moved to the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Chemistry, and together discovered a new element named protactinium. But the walls were closing in, and in 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Many Jewish scientists left the country, but Meitner stayed, thinly protected by her Austrian citizenship, and very eager to hang on to the rare opportunity for a woman to conduct scientific research. "I love physics with all my heart," she wrote to a friend. "I can hardly imagine it not being part of my life." In 1938, Germany invaded Austria, and Meitner opted to flee, finally. The Nobel physics laureate Niels Bohr arranged for her to escape by train, and she made her way to Sweden, devastated at having to leave her life's work and her family behind. But she continued collaborating with Hahn by mail. He ran experiments, and she interpreted findings that he, himself, did not understand. One result stumped them both. When uranium atoms were bombarded with neutrons, the neutrons should have been absorbed and an electron released, creating a heavier element. Instead, Hahn found barium a much lighter element. They were baffled. The finding was outside of Hahn's expertise as a chemist. "Perhaps you can come up with some sort of fantastic explanation," he wrote in a letter to Meitner. Hahn and his colleague, Strassmann, submitted the results for publication in December 1938 with a very uncertain tone. Meitner was not included as an author, nor is there any mention of her contribution to the work. Meanwhile, in Sweden, she was mulling over the results with Frisch, her physicist's nephew. One day, Frisch recalled in a memoir, while scribbling calculations on scraps of paper, they realized that uranium was extremely unstable and likely to fracture on impact with, say, a neutron. Those fragments would be violently blasted apart. If one of those pieces were barium, Meitner mused, the other would have to be another light element called krypton. She computed the energy driving the blast using Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared. Hahn and Strassmann hadn't known. They had just split the atom. Their theoretical interpretation of Hahn and Strassmann's results in the February 1939 edition of the journal Nature put Frisch and Meitner on the map. But to test their hypothesis in the following weeks, they published 2 more papers with the results, which became the first physical confirmation of what Frisch termed nuclear fission. Meanwhile, Hahn was receiving pushback for working with a Jewish scientist. Later that year, Germany invaded Poland. The race was on to build an atomic bomb. The American government assembled the Manhattan Project to develop such a weapon. Meitner, though she had been invited, refused to join. Quote, "I will have nothing to do with a bomb." Exclamation note. Close quote. She famously said. In 1945, Hahn was nominated for the 1944 Nobel in Chemistry. Meitner was nominated again 5 times for the 1946 Nobel in Physics, but the Nobel Committee argued that it was a firm tradition to award the prize for experimental rather than theoretical. In his later years, Otto Hahn tried to make amends. He offered Meitner a position at the Max Planck Institute in Germany, which she declined. In 1948, he nominated her for the Nobel Prize in Physics. Meitner went on to be nominated 46 times for the Nobel, in both physics and chemistry, but she never won. Today, only 4 women have won in physics, most recently in 2020, and only 8 in chemistry. In 1968, then 89 years old, Meitner died in England. Her obituary in the Times referred to her merely as an atomic pioneer. We have to take a quick break here, but I will return in just a moment with my special guests for this program. And you better be there. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Today's program is one that is sometimes hard to hear, but absolutely crucial to listen to. It's hard to hear, literally, in parts, because one of my guests, Lela Mailman, is on a conference call, her end of which is in a native reservation. And native reservations are notoriously lacking in garbled at first, but sometimes completely interrupted telephone and other electronic procedures. They're just not given a priority. However, it is garbled, yes, at the beginning, but it improves vastly as it goes on. And it's so important that I left it the way it is, because I didn't want to miss any of the great parts. So I beg you to hang in there. I ask this also because of what she has to say, not only how she's saying it, in talking about the ways in which U.S. law, the full spectrum of it, from the local police and sheriff straight up to the Secretary of the Interior of the United States, have ignored her, dismissed real evidence, and otherwise made her and her case invisible. Nor is she the only one. I won't give statistics here on the number of missing and murdered Native and Indigenous women in this country and in Canada, because I do so during the interview, and because in any event proper numbers are just not kept. However, it's quite rare that one actually hears raw the despair of a mother in the wake of a murdered or missing child. And I remind you that this is years after the disappearance itself. You will also hear from Darlene Gomez, a remarkable woman who has devoted her life to legal representation for the mothers of the missing and the murdered. Darlene has been practicing law for over 19 years. She's a founding member of the New Mexico MMIW Task Force, that's Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives, and is widely considered a leading expert in MMIWR throughout the United States. One of the things that came out of this conversation is the respectful request for a conversation between Lela, Darlene, and Deb Haaland, the first Native person and the first woman to sit in cabinet as cabinet level as Secretary of the Interior. Haaland's appointment gave me a sense of justice and delight when it was made. She had been a guest on this program when she was running for Congress. You can still access that interview through the files and the records. I was so ecstatic that a Native woman was actually in a position of power, and the Interior was part of that power. I was ready to dance on rooftops. Even now, facing what appears like demonstrable failure, I keep thinking of what Haaland must be up against. Oil and coal companies with their huge power, environmental destruction, continued purloining of native lands, and everything else one can imagine the Interior to be comprised of. I think to myself how difficult and painful it must be for her to be faced with people like Lela Mailman and Darlene Gomez, with their missing, possibly murdered, Native children. Still, it would be both just and compassionate to arrange such a conversation, without it becoming a debate, without it becoming an argument, to try and find a solution. And this program is going to answer their appeal to try to make that possible. I don't know whether the Secretary of the Interior will be willing, but we can try. And for the rest, here they are. Darlene Gomez, the attorney, Lela Mailman, the mother, and let them speak for themselves. Lela and Darlene, welcome to Women's Media Center Live. It's a real honor to have you both here. I'm very grateful. I'm here with Lela Mailman and Darlene Gomez, her attorney, in what you will hear is a very heartbreaking, enraging, teeth-gnashing case. Welcome. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us, Robin.
Oh, my pleasure. Are you there, Lela?
Ma'am, I am. Thank you very much for airing my story on your radio station.
Oh, my dear. Lela is the mother of a missing, we hope just missing, and not missing and murdered, Indigenous woman, the mother of Melanie James. And that's a sad story. In short, there were two sisters once upon a time, Melanie and Melissa. And they lived in Farmington, New Mexico, which is a city sort of bordering on Navajo Nation. And their mother, Lela, who's with us today, often had to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, single mom. In the spring of 2014, after Melanie, who was 21, stopped visiting and responding to text messages, Melissa, who was only 18, and her mother went to the police in Farmington to report her missing. And therein the story begins. Why don't you take over, Lela, and tell us a little about how you were treated in Indian country? And then we can hear from Darlene, who came in and rode to the rescue and took over the case. Okay?
Okay, I went down to the Farmington Police Department to report my daughter, Melanie James, missing. and we weren't treated very fairly because we went in there and we asked to file a report, a missing persons report on Melanie, and we were told that they're not going to take the report. And we asked why, and he said that she has to be missing 48 hours. And I told him it was 3 days now.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, 48 hours from the time you step into my office. He wrote down her name, and then he just left the office.
Oh.
So me and Melissa, we got up and we left, and then we came back. And even then, when we came back, he took the report, wrote down everything we said, and he just had no remorse on his face, no facial expressions or anything. And so he wrote down, and he said, "I'll be in touch. We'll put it out."
These cases are epidemic in the Southwest, around the whole country, and also in the United States, in the middle of the country, in the north, around Winnipeg, that disappeared in missing women. 4% of Canada's population are Native women, but 24% of the missing and murdered women are Indigenous women. Now, those are slightly skewed statistics, wouldn't you say?
Most definitely. This is Darlene Gomez speaking. One of the things I also want to talk about when it comes to data, that the data is so underreported that we don't have any accurate numbers anywhere.
Right.
And oftentimes our missing Indigenous women and men are misclassified. So they could be light-skinned and they could be entered as white or Hispanic.
Oh, Jesus.
They could be darker skinned, so that leads to the Hispanic or African American. Mm-hmm. And just currently, I just received some updated stats from the FBI. So in the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, there is currently 664 Indigenous women missing and 975 Indigenous men missing. And so I believe that those numbers are lower than what's actually missing, because you have to remember some people don't even get entered into NCIC. And Lela can tell you what happened to her daughter and how her daughter wasn't accurately entered into NCIC for years. And that's just one of the issues in Melanie James' case.
Oh, I see. Well, the Bureau of Indian Affairs estimates more than 4,000 cases of Native American and Alaskan national women, Native women, have gone unsolved completely. They acknowledge that. And New Mexico, where you folks are, has the highest number of cases, I gather, in the States. No wonder you're tired, Darlene. More than 80% of Indigenous women have experienced interpersonal violence. And that's Center for Disease Control and Prevention statistics. So, American Indian and Alaska Native women in 2020 had the second highest rates of death by homicide after Black women. That's also according to the CDC. So you're up against an enormous bigotry that almost unlike other racist bigotries doesn't even see your visibility. I mean, it's terrifying. What's been happening with the case, Darlene, since you became the lawyer? You're the lawyer of quite a few cases, aren't you?
I am. When it comes to talking about what happens in a case, it's myself, but the family plays such a vital role in it. So what I can say for Lela and myself, we have really used the press to get Melissa's story out there. And we've really had to work with the police department in Farmington, which has been, at times all of the stars have lined up and we're able to get a detective who starts working on the case, and then we'll put some effort into the case. But for years, I could say like probably 80% of the time that Melanie has been missing, there was no movement. So it was like a cold case. And then I know I started working with Lela, with a detective in Farmington. It seems like she worked the case for a short time, and then I haven't heard from her for a whole year and a half.
Ugh.
And then Lela can tell the story about how she was told that another detective now took the case, but that detective didn't even know he was taking the case. So Lela, maybe you can tell about that experience that just recently occurred.
Please.
Okay, this is Lela. I went to one of the National Missing Day out there in Albuquerque to meet other officers and other little groups that help out. Well, anyway, I confronted the detective that was on the case at the time, Elma Chavez. Well, she got so fidgety and nervous when I was talking to her, and she started to tear up. And she just hit the officer on the arm that was sitting beside her and told him, "This is your case." And he laughed, and he's like, "Are you serious?" "This is your case." That's all she said to him. And he said he didn't know anything about the case. And she sat there for a bit, and then she left.
So they.
And
Yeah.
I know I asked her. I said, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying? What do you know? I have that right to know."
Yeah. Oh, God, it's just heartbreaking.
This is Darlene. I think one of the sadder pieces is after this had occurred. This occurred, I think, in probably December of 2023. Is that right, Lela?
Uh-huh.
So since that time, nobody from the Farmington Police Department has reached out to me or returned my phone calls. The chief of police in the New Yorker, the chief of police of Farmington, said that he was victim blaming immediately, that it was the family's fault that they didn't report her missing until 3 weeks later. And that's what we constantly see, victim blaming. And when Lela first met the chief of police, he didn't even know about Melanie's case. So there's no urgency. And the crazy part also is that Melanie's things were found thrown, her backpack, her wallet. Like, why would anyone just drop their backpack and all their info in like a vacant lot somewhere? It's not. So in our opinion, they should have started that investigation as suspicious. They should have pulled the cameras from businesses and homes around the area. That's what they usually do when it's not a person of color, when you're looking at maybe a person who is white.
Yeah, damn
Just,
right.
You know, we wish that we would have got the attention like Gabby Petito.
Yeah.
Every single missing person in the United States should get that, and especially Indigenous women.
And they blame it, victim blaming, on the culture itself. Actually, and I want to get this one out of the way because it's so used and abused so frequently. They say that it's not the native way to turn in such information. That is not true. There's only one cultural impediment, if it's even that, and that's Navajo specific, as I understand it. But I'm quoting from the New Yorker article, and I don't trust them. So correct me if I'm wrong. Which is that it can be taken as negativity if you ask too much about a missing woman. That's seen as a sign of negativity. Is that so? I don't imagine that it's in this day and age. It's particularly relevant. What do you think?
This is Darlene, and I can tell you from the families that I work with, about 14 of them are Dene, and there is a lot of cultural issues that occur about speaking about death or speaking about someone who could be missing. And, you know, there's a lot of cultural norms that do not allow people to speak like that, but I think this younger generation knows that unless they speak out about their loved ones and speak out in the truth, that this is just going to continue to be a barrier for finding justice.
I see.
And I think other tribes do also have cultural norms about not speaking about the dead or speaking about the missing. And that's culturally, but I think that happens across all cultures.
Yes, it does. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Oh, this is just so terribly awful. So what is happening, if anything, in such a cold case? What can you actually do, since the evidence has been found but not operated on, since time has elapsed, much time? Is there anything that can be done, or is it consigned to the protest bin?
Well, I think for one is we're continuing to make those phone calls, Lela and myself, that we want to sit down. We want to have a meeting with the Farmington Police Department, and we want to know, okay, where is the evidence? Has it been tested? Because we kind of get like, oh, yeah, we've tested it. We don't have anything clearly. How many warrants have been done? Do you have a person of interest? Have you spoken to the last people who were around her? Uh-huh. And so I can tell you for myself, and I can let Lela speak for herself, but we will not stop protesting and saying Melanie's name until we get a sit down with the Farmington Police Department, and we will not go away until this is investigated like it should be.
Yeah.
And I know that the police department is like, oh, we don't like to use cold case, but that's what it is. But it's just sitting there on someone's desk, and nobody is actively working it. In our eyes, it's a cold case, and we will continue to go out and say Melanie's name. We will go out on her birthday and walk. We will go out on May 5th, which is Missing Indigenous People Day, and we will bring attention to the issue, not only for Melanie, but for every other family out there who needs justice and needs peace when it comes to their missing loved one.
Damn right. What gets me is that when they want it, when the white establishment wants it, then tribal nations are sovereign and they can't be meddled with. But when they don't want it, they can charge in and do whatever they want. But the truth is, although tribal nations are ostensibly sovereign, they rely on the federal government to prosecute and even often to investigate such crimes. And until recently, the Navajo Nation didn't even have full access to programs that much of our country takes for granted, like an Amber Alert. You don't have an Amber Alert. You can't enter victims' information into the National Crime Information Systems. Now, how in hell are you supposed to find somebody if you don't have the basic tools for doing so?
And you have to remember the Farmington Police Department is a city police department that has far more resources than the Navajo Nation.
Of course.
So they can't be complaining about jurisdiction and money and officers. They're one of the best funded, and they have the most officers for a police department. Places like the Navajo Nation, which is the size of Rhode Island, they could maybe have 10 officers maximum working.
Mm.
So, Lela, maybe you can tell everybody what you're doing to keep Melanie's name alive, and
please,
how you continue to fight the institutions.
Okay, the way I'm keeping Melanie alive,
yeah,
is just by going through protests, going out, getting her name out there on the streets. I have gone on Facebook, and I have her flyers out there. Her brothers and sisters have friends out in Australia. I have people that ran for her from California, and every time they have a chance to have a parade or a little get-together, with the sports, music, they hand out flyers of her.
Mm.
And I've done so many forums, news articles. We've done get-togethers, like marches. Just running from Utah into Arizona, trying to bring awareness and spreading awareness of all Native Americans, missing. And we we have a hard time having the newspaper to cover these things. The local newspaper here in Farmington, we have a hard time trying to cover them. I've called them. I've asked them if they can cover it, just a brief story, just to try to get their names out there. And Christmas parades, any kind of parade that would come up here in Farmington. That's how I've been keeping Melanie's name alive and wearing shirts that have her pictures, her missing posters, constantly asking churches.
You're doing everything you possibly can. It's so difficult because the assumption is, oh, well, it's old, it's done, it's finished, it's a cold case. And that's so cruel because the missing part, the ache in the heart, remains.
Yes.
And I hope this program does some consciousness raising about this, the way we've done Indigenous women's prediction situation before. I was hoping, I said to Darlene before you got on the phone, I was hoping that in Night Country, which is this new series with Cara Reyes and Jodie Foster on True Detective on television, which is getting a lot of media attention about a missing Indigenous woman, Alaska Native. And I was hoping that will raise consciousness in a way that sometimes a dramatic presentation, will. It makes people connect the dots in ways that they haven't before. So, it's still a fairly new series, and so we're waiting to see. But my heart, as a mother, just goes out to you, Lela. And I hope that this program surfaces and connects with people and brings some information that will, one way or the other, be able to close the door on this. Darlene, you're a wonder among women. You've done how many thousands of cases?
Well, I've done about 23 cases, but I've done 2.1 million in pro bono services. Since 2019, I've personally, out of my family's pocket, spent over $50,000.
You're kidding.
Going to events and to helping organize the families, because the families, it's their story, and they are so incredibly smart, and they've been able to get in front of the media. I just want to give a huge shout out to Lela, who was able to confront the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland,
yes,
when Deb Haaland did not want to speak with us. And I would love for your listeners to listen to what Lela did, because she is so impactful, and she gives me so much strength because she is a true warrior.
Wow. I was, when you told me that, I was very disappointed, because Deb Haaland, when she was running for office, did this program, was a guest on this program. And then when she was appointed to cabinet, I was dancing on roofs, because I thought, oh my God, the first time the Secretary of the Interior is a Native woman. Hey, hey. And I thought that there would be such a difference. And apparently it's mostly verbal. Not yet. That's very sad, indeed. But you're a marvel, Lela, and so are you, Deb. And I'm very grateful to both of you for everything that you've done and are doing for Native women and for women in general. Is there a particular place, a website, or something that people could contribute to? Like, is there a GoFundMe situation for trying to replenish the fact that you're in pauper's prison now because of all the pro bono work? Is there a place that people can send support to?
I think, for one, I am really happy to announce that I have a nonprofit that we're just waiting for our final IRS papers to come out. It's going to be called MMIWR Indian Country. And
That
also
stands for missing and
murdered,
murdered.
missing Indigenous women and relatives,
Uh-huh.
Indian country, because we also have to remember about our men who are missing, our
Yes.
children, and our Two-Spirit, and our LGBT community.
Yes.
I also have a page, which is my law offices of Darlene Gomez. So it's dargomezlaw.com, where some of the families have their GoFundMe pages. I know Lela, I think, has a Cash App. I would also encourage your followers to follow me on TikTok. It's Dar Gomez Law. This is where we get out people's stories when they go missing. And Lela, that would be great if you could give them your Cash App, where if they want to donate directly to you, they can.
Well, this is Lela. I just wanted to state one thing about, the higher ups like Deb Holland. She's Native American. She knows how each and every one of us are treated. So therefore, I thought she would put more effort into, trying to change Native laws, trying to get stiffer penalties and all. But to me, it seems like she just used MMIW to help get Booster into office, to get in a higher up position.
Amen.
Right now, what I am sick and tired of we're meeting with the Attorney Generals, we're meeting with Deb Holland, we're meeting with Lujan Grisham, and not one of them have come out personally, but they send their assistants out. And all we get is, here's a card. Call us if we have any more information.
Mm.
And when we do call, what does that information go? What are they doing on that information? And that's what makes me mad, because we are not getting answers. And all Deborah Holland says, this has been going on for centuries. Okay, I understand that. This has been going on for centuries. But don't all Native American people want to put a stop to it?
Yeah.
Don't they want to change it? Stop right there, change the laws, do what they can, because us that are fighting, when we're gone, who's going to stand up for these people, the people that we don't even know, but yet we embrace them with love, we embrace them with respect, and most of all, we feel what they feel. And when I find my daughter Melanie, I am not going to stop. I'm going to stay, because I know how every parent feels, because I am going through it. Right now, I am going through it, and we just need change. It's not only about the people and murders that are missing right now. It's about the future generation.
Yes.
A lot of generations don't know a lot, and I keep telling everybody to learn your state laws, your constitutional laws, your federal laws, and the Navajo Nation laws, because they back off when it comes to that. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, I guess this is all we can do. No, they got to push it.
Yeah.
They got to keep fighting. And that's what I intend to do, is keep fighting. And, we are very, very grateful and very blessed that Darlene is doing what she's doing, money out of her pocket. That is a very big-hearted person.
Oh.
Somebody that really, is full of love.
Oh, Lela, so
and
are you.
every time I meet Darlene, she gives me that encouragement to push on. She gives me the hug a mother should.
Oh.
When she hugs me, the feelings I get were feelings that I had for my mother.
Oh.
And I love Darlene so much, and I'm so grateful that she's there for us. But, yeah, these people have got to stop saying, the higher ups have got to say, this has been going on centuries ago, back in the settlement days. Okay, I understand that. It's got to stop.
Yeah,
it's not going to get any better unless we put a stop
unless
to
we
it
stop
and try
it.
to change some laws.
That's right.
Yes, change some laws.
Yeah. It's
and get a lot more people like Darlene that have a good heart, that are really in there about the law and standing firm for what she believes in. To other attorneys that will donate their time to help these people. I'm sure they all have families. And what if that was one of their children missing?
Precisely.
It seems like that's the only way they will understand what we are going through. Yes, we may be Native, but we also have feelings.
Oh, Lela,
And we hurt just like everybody else.
Of course, Lela, you and Darlene are magnificent. You're just extraordinary women and magnificent in your fight, in your refusal to go under, in your just stubborn, dogged hanging on. And because of that hanging on, we will triumph. We will in the end.
Yeah.
My heart just aches for you and goes out to you, and I hope this program reaches lots of ears and hearts and pocketbooks and activists who will come on board, and we'll also pressure at the top, pressure at the bottom, pressure all through from the top to the bottom. And I thank you so much for being with us today. I'm deeply grateful. Thank you for being here on Women's Media Center Live. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having us. We hope that we can come back next year and report changes to you.
Oh boy, do I. Wow. Do I hope that. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Well,
and we would love to join your show with Deb Haaland, the Secretary of the Interior. We're ready to have an open conversation with her.
That's very interesting. I'll work on that. I don't know if I can get the other part of it up on board, but since she did it when she was running for office, I don't know whether she'll do it as a cabinet minister, but we can give it a try. Why not? Ha ha.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
Lela was perfect. She said Secretary Haaland ran on MMIW, and we want her to show and to speak and be transparent about what she has done in office with statistics and data.
Exactly. Yeah. And and we're
show us the money.
Yeah, and we're not asking for the moon. We know that it's very difficult when you're the first. She's the first Native woman to be in cabinet. She's the first to da-da-da-da-da-dum. But we need action. We've got it. People are dying, and more people will die. And so we got to stop that. Thank you. Thank you again. And take care, and take care of each other.
We will do so. Thank you, Robin.
It's time for our final break, but I'll be back directly with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Do you know what are the most misunderstood birds in North America? Female birds. And those are fighting words. Every Memorial Day weekend since 2020, the 5 members of the Galbatross Project have hosted Female Bird Day to encourage birders to identify, appreciate, and collect data on what they call the most misunderstood birds in North America. Humans are visual creatures, said Joanna Wu, a doctoral student in the Ecology and Evolutionary Biology program at the University of California, Los Angeles, and a member of the Galbatross Project. We are attracted to things that are bright. In North America, that tends to be male birds. Wouldn't you know it? Half of all birds are females, yet they have long been overlooked in ornithology. A study of 5 prominent natural history museums, including the American Museum of Natural History in New York and London's Natural History Museum, found that their avian collections skewed heavily toward male specimens. In a 2018 article, Ken Kaufman, a field editor for Audubon magazine, wrote that, quote, an unconscious bias against female birds is widespread in birding, close quote, and described his own efforts to correct his partiality. Scientists are beginning to realize what they've been missing. Ha 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 ha. Cackle, cackle. For instance, female birds were long assumed to rarely sing. This notion likely grew out of a long-standing focus on birds of North America, where female birds do tend to sing less than males. But in the 1990s, researchers turned their attention to the tropics and found that female birds there were prolific singers. Karen Odom, a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Maryland, College Park, is one of the leaders of the Female Bird Song Project, which asks birders to observe and record female birds singing. She has found evidence that a lot of species have female song, and that it is probably more the norm rather than the exception, and that it's probably ancestral. She said, almost every year I feel there's another species or two that surfaces, and somebody tells me about someone with female song. Dr. Odom said, it helps that ornithology is diversifying, she added, as there is some evidence that women researchers are more likely to study female bird song. What do you know? The idea for the Galbatross project took shape in 2019 after a few colleagues at the National Audubon Society participated in a World Series of birding in New Jersey and decided to count only female birds for their competition list. They finished second to last with just 31 female bird species identified, but they were invigorated by the experience and determined to get other birders to widen their focus, I'll say. Their annual Female Bird Day promotes in-person walks and events, but it is primarily an online event built around a hashtag Female Bird Day, for participants to share photos and facts on social media. Members of the Galbatross Project also give talks at birding organizations, explaining why identifying female birds is important and how to do so. Because male and female birds often have very different domains and behaviors, a better understanding of females can benefit conservation efforts, said Ruth Bennett, an ecology at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute's Migratory Bird Center. Dr. Bennett, whose research was one inspiration for the Galbatross Project, made the connection while studying golden-winged warblers. Oh, what a beautiful name. Golden-winged warblers, which overwinter in Honduras. She found that the female warblers were forced out of higher quality habitats by territorial males, and they congregated in areas disrupted by development. The female warblers suffered habitat loss at twice the rate of their male counterparts. That's what Dr. Bennett and her colleagues found. When they surveyed conservation plans for 66 North American migratory land birds, only 8% of the recommendations actually took sexual segregation into account. Epidemic of blind perception or non-perception. Positively identifying females can require a full-fledged bird detective. Some bird species display very clear differences between the sexes. The male cardinal is bright red, while the female is closer to brown, but many others require close attention to the color of the bill or how the nest is built. Timing can also be a useful clue for birders. In some migratory species, the female birds migrate later in the spring than the males. Ms. Wu encouraged birders to embrace the challenge of identifying female birds. You get to know the birds so intimately, too, she said. You have to know their life cycle, when they produce, and what they're up to. So get out there and check out those sister birds, because you never know. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.